Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On this episode, we talk with women's hockey legend Winny Brodt-Brown. We discuss hockey development in Minnesota, the Whitecaps and professional women's hockey, the Upper Midwest Girls High School Elite Hockey League, and the current college recruiting environment. I really learned a lot in this conversation, so I hope you get as much out of it as I did. Before we get to our guest, if you enjoyed this episode and want us to keep making more of them, please share it with teammates and friends. You can also subscribe, like, follow, and even better, it would be great if you would leave us a review. Now, let's drop the puck and get to the show. I'm very excited to have on the Champs App podcast, Minnesota hockey legend Winny Brodt-Brown, hailing from Roseville, Minnesota. Winnie was the first winner of the Minnesota Ms. Hockey Award in 1996. She then went on to win 2 national championships with the University of New Hampshire and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. In addition, she played with the U.S. women's national team at 2 national championships, winning silver medals at both the events. She then started playing for the Minnesota Whitecaps in 2002, yes, 2002, and is still playing for them as their captain this season. Beyond her professional career, Winnie is a mom, a business person, and the owner of OS Hockey, as well as the Minnesota Junior Whitecaps. And she is also the director of girls hockey at the Upper Midwest High School Elite Hockey League. Welcome to the podcast, Winnie.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
You have a very, very long hockey career and continues to this day playing professionally. And so we're going to start out with asking you, like we do all our guests, a little bit about your hockey history. And my first question is that you started playing hockey when you were 18 months old, and I was wondering what took you so long to start skating?
My mom and dad. So actually at the rink that you're in right now, which is a pretty special place for my whole family, that's the rink that I started on when I was 18 months old, the Roseville Ice Arena. And my dad would be playing open hockey beforehand, and my mom did all the teaching and all the picking up and, putting us out there on the ice. And I ended up playing mite hockey when I was 4 for Roseville Youth Hockey. And I also figure skated the whole time. So my whole family plays, my mom, my dad. My mom actually started the first women's open hockey, probably in the whole state, maybe even in the whole country, at Roseville Ice Arena. That's still going today. And that was probably back in the 70s that she started. So that's pretty cool history about just that rink. And it was just for women.
What motivated your mom to get so involved?
I think it was like she was at that age group where women didn't have a lot of opportunities to participate in sports, and my dad played and my mom just wanted to, and there's a bunch of hockey moms that wanted to start playing, so they got ice at Roseville Ice Arena during the day, and they just put their figure skates on and got a hockey stick and had all all their husband's gear and stuff, and just had a blast. And I think that's probably why I was the third kid in my family. So, and my mom had started us all at 18 months old, pretty much when we could walk, because when she started when she was 22 at that rink, she's like, girls should, everyone should be able to play, because my older brother played, my sister who's 6 years older than me played, and then I'm just grateful that, my mom started me as well. And I think it's one of those things where I think a lot of the women back in that generation, like I said, didn't have a lot of opportunity, and, hockey is a great sport. And so my mom and dad thought that, why not? So they put me into boys hockey at Roseville. And back then, you didn't have another choice, right? Like now in today's world, it's a lot different, because you put a girl in boys hockey and sometimes you're like, oh, why are you doing that? There's a place for the girls, to play girls hockey. But back then, if you were a good athlete and you could make the travel A teams, no one really said anything. And I had great teammates in our community at Roseville that supported me from the time I was 4 playing with the boys and mites, all the way through A squirts, A peewees, A bantams, all the way up until the high school program where I played for 2 years.
And my understanding is you kind of didn't even realize that, at 5'4" and relatively smaller than the boys, like that, you should be a little bit more scared than you were.
Yeah, I think, looking back now, I see some of these guys going out on practice for high school practice, and I look and I'm like, did I really think I was like their size when I was playing back then? But I think because I didn't know any different, I think I honestly thought I was the same size as the guys that I was playing against. And I think I was able to compete also because I figure skated up until I was 18, which most people don't know. And so I think that was a big piece of it, is that my efficiency of skating. And I also think that's a reason why I can continue to play today in today's game, is because of my background in the figure skating. Because people don't realize, back when I was playing, we didn't go to boys camps. We didn't, go to week-long camps, stay overnights, and all that stuff. There was no real training. It was pretty much, we grew up, and in Minnesota, what you do is you play on the outdoor hockey rinks, and that's what we did. And it was a neighborhood thing, and we all kind of just developed each other, and we developed a passion for the game. And I think that's also another reason why I'm still playing, is because I started the game because it was fun, and it just brought a lot of happiness to me and my family, and I think that's why I still play today.
Okay, so what were some of the, I know you play defense, so what are some of the skills that you think you developed by playing with boys? Like, was it like battling in the corners? Was it like shoulder checks? Was it, obviously you were a very good skater. Was it like just figuring out how to have to skate away from them and avoid getting hit?
Yeah, I think, well, back then, like, that's all guys wanted to do, was hit the only girl on the ice. So it was pretty much like, I tell people when I was playing, it was survival every game out there. And I think the two biggest things I took away from playing boys is obviously the toughness. Because I think guys are really they're just resilient, and they just keep going and attacking. And I had to be pretty smart. So I'd have to say my hockey IQ, as far as breaking the puck out, was super important. And I took a lot of pride in that. And then just stopping the rush. And I think I was able to do that because of my skating and ability. And I think I was put at defense because of my skating, which I didn't mind, because I like being back there and I hate being scored on. So
Gotcha. And fundamentally, what do you think made you such a great hockey player? Like, was it just playing with the boys, or was it, do you feel like it was your family also helped out with teaching you?
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, the amount of hours that we played outside. I know everyone talks about, oh, these kids, do so much skating and, all this stuff in today's world. And I go, I think we skated a lot more back in the day than the kids do now. It just, everything's a lot more organized than it used to be, because we would be out on the ice for 2-3 hours straight, and you would never have breaks, right? Like, you're just out there and you take a little, 20-second break, and then you're back in the game, when you're playing out on the pond or out on the lakes or in your backyard rinks. And so I think just creativity, playing outdoors, and just the fun it brings, and the passion that you kind of just have. And I think when you get that as a kid, you don't ever lose that. If you don't let yourself. I know a lot of people do lose it because they almost take it too serious.
Yeah.
And you just got to remember, like, why are you playing? And my why is because I have the opportunity to play, and my mom didn't have the opportunity. And she always reminds us of that all the time, because she's 75 and still playing hockey.
Wow.
And I always tell her, I go, Mom, because she goes, we'll see if you're playing until you're 75. And I go, but I got a 20-year head start. So I can retire, at 50 something from playing. So I think has a lot to do with my family. We're super competitive, super passionate, but we always remembered that the game is fun, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And be thankful and grateful that you have the opportunity to play is what is kind of a big message in our family.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, so as I mentioned in the intro, you're the first ever woman to win the Minnesota Miss High School in 1996. So my question is, did they create the award just for you? Since it didn't exist beforehand, and if they did, how did you end up winning it?
Well, it's a good question that you're asking that, because they did have a state tournament the first year, and they didn't have a Miss Hockey. So I was fortunate enough in 1996, when they had the state tournament, they had added the Miss Hockey award. And I think it had a lot to do with Let's Play Hockey and the support of that. And they kind of hosted the banquet for the boys, that it's awarded to the best male hockey player in the state, which is a big deal in our state. And for me, it was pretty neat and pretty special, because when I got the award for Miss Hockey that year, I was at the boys banquet. So it was all guys in the room, all my peers that I'd played, growing up playing against them in squirts, peewees, in high school. So the irony is I knew more of those guys in that banquet than any of the girls I played against that season, played my only year of girls hockey. So for me, it was pretty cool that I got to accept the award with the guys that I had played against and played with all those years.
That's awesome. So maybe the Ms. Hockey Award was going to be the answer to my next question. But what was your best youth hockey memory before heading off to college?
Gosh, I had a lot of them. We had a lot of fun teams, and we're pretty competitive. I would probably say playing in the state tournament for the A Bantams, because now hockey is different. Now it's double A Bantams and double A Peewees. Back then it was just A, B, C hockey. Now there's a whole bunch of letters. But just my A Bantam team that I was actually, we were probably one of the top 5 teams in the state. And I think just that season overall is kind of where I really wanted to be a hockey player. And the crazy part about that is that was before there was the Olympics. The Olympics, hadn't been announced yet for 1998. Yeah. There was no college hockey in the Midwest. There was a lot of things that weren't around, but I was like, I really wanted to be a hockey player. And at that time, I'm like, my 8th grade year, I'm like, gosh, what am I going to do? Because I can't keep playing boys hockey forever, in college and stuff, as much as I would have loved to. I just saw the boys were now starting to get a lot bigger, stronger. It was just changing. And so a couple years later, it was pretty neat when they announced the Olympics and all that type of stuff that was going to be, coming along in 1998.
Gotcha. So help me understand how you ended up at University of New Hampshire, and the year that you spent there, and then obviously then moving back to Minnesota. Help me understand your college career.
Yeah. So I had a very interesting story. So when I was a senior in high school, Chris Voles, who was the athletic director at the University of Minnesota, had called me up, and I met her, and she said the University of Minnesota is going to be adding a team in 1998. And so they weren't going to have it. I graduated in 1996 from Roseville High School. They said that they weren't going to be having a team till the following year. So then I would have to go to school at the University of Minnesota, but not play, because they weren't going to have a team until the following season. So at that point, Coach K was at the University of New Hampshire, the head coach, and she had contacted me, and she wanted me to go play at the University of New Hampshire, which was one of the top teams in the country at the time. And I was still training to try to make the 1998 Olympic team. And so I decided, my best situation would be to go to New Hampshire to play on this team, because I didn't want to sit out and not play.
Of course.
And so it actually ended up backfiring on me, because about 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave for the University of New Hampshire, one of my good friends, Debbie Thompson, who was a Division I gymnast, had called me, because back then it was landlines. There was no cell phones. So you had to call people's house lines. And she said, Winnie, are you eligible to play hockey this season? And I'm like, what do you mean, am I eligible? I should be. I'm leaving 2 weeks to play. And she goes, because I'm going to be in my first meet. And they said, I'm not eligible because of a English class that we had taken in high school. And so sure enough, I called the clearinghouse. It said that I was a half credit short in English, and it was just a whole huge mess, and I wasn't eligible. And either were a bunch of female athletes all across our state in Minnesota. And it was because I think we were all freshmen, and in the state school system, they had changed, you have to take an English class 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So usually it was only 10th, 11th, and 12th. But our class, graduating class, was the first class you needed all 4 years of it. So our senior year, we had to take a English course to graduate. So we took this one. It was called Efficient Reading. Our high school had changed it to Critical Reading, and the clearinghouse, NCAA clearinghouse, was so far behind in their paperwork that they thought it was a remedial class for kids that couldn't read, but it was actually a college prep class for speed reading, prepare for college. So the NCAA clearinghouse didn't say it was okay for the credits that we needed to be a Division I athlete. So it didn't affect Division III athletes, just Division I athletes. And so pretty much I had to go back to high school for a month to take an English course. Yep. And then finally, like NCAA wasn't talking to anyone. It became a huge deal. Senator Wellstone and Governor Arnie Carlson had to step in for all of us female athletes, that it was somehow just affecting us. And we're talking softball players, you know, soccer players, gymnasts. I was probably one of the only hockey players that it affected. But then they finally passed it in November that this class was okay. These classes that were changed in their, you know, high school curriculum, like it was okay. And so that all got passed. So Coach K said, well, do you want to start up at New Hampshire in second semester? And I talked to my parents and I decided that I wasn't going to, because I didn't want to miss a half a season where you're meeting all your friends, you're, you know, meeting everyone at school, you're getting kind of acclimated. And so I decided to take the whole year off. So I ended up just training on my own and doing that stuff. And so the irony is that I ended up taking that year off anyways. So then I could have, I just went to the University of Minnesota.
Gotcha.
That's what actually happened.
Yeah.
But I owed Coach K and the program to go out there. So I ended up going the next year and then that following fall. And then we ended up winning a national championship. And it was like, I mean, it was a perfect year. Everything was great. It was almost too great that I kind of spooked myself, like, gosh, you know, like it's gonna be really hard to leave here in 4 or 5 years, you know. So, and then my little sister, who's 6 years younger than me, was coming up, and I didn't want to miss her stuff, and so I ended up going back home to play for the Gophers. So
yeah, so you played with your sister.
Yeah, but then
you played with your sister Chelsea for 3 years at Minnesota.
1 year at Minnesota.
1 year?
Yep,
Okay.
my senior year. Yep. So
Okay.
we're 6 years apart. So it's crazy how I actually even did that. So I graduated in 1996 and I graduated from the U of M in 2003. So pretty much I went to New Hampshire, went to Minnesota, then won a national championship my junior year at Minnesota. And then I trained with the US team. So I lived in Lake Placid, so I didn't play. Or I played with Team USA, so that year doesn't count. And then after I got cut for the second time, I decided to take a break from hockey and just go to school at the University of Minnesota, because I knew my little sister was coming in her freshman year. So I redshirted that year, and then I played my 6th year.
Gotcha.
With Chrissy Wendell and Natalie Darwitz and them, because people have to remember my whole class, like Nadine Muzzerall and those guys, were all gone when I came back, because I was gone my senior year. So I was gone my senior year. Most of the people I had went to school with for 2 or 3 years were all graduated. And so I knew the people coming in, I knew that class, the younger class, even more because of my sister and stuff.
Gotcha. And Chrissy Wendell and Natalie Darwitz, not too shabby players to be playing with. And I'm assuming at the national camps you played with them as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Oh yeah, I've known. The first time I met Chrissy Wendell was at the rink that you're at, but outside at the John Rose Oval, the speed skating oval, because we were out playing pickup hockey on the big old rink out there, and she had a big black eye, and I was like, "Who's this girl? She got some good hands." Because back then, I remember there wasn't very many good girl hockey players, right? So when you saw one, you're like, "Whoa, it's pretty cool."
Nice. So, let's talk about being centralized with the USA hockey team. Obviously, you're good enough to play on the World Championships for a couple of years, and
for a few, and then one was canceled even because of the SARS break in 2003. That was
I remember that. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. And so we had Erin Witten-Hamlin on the program, who's the head coach at Merrimack, and she talked about the real challenges of being on the national team, playing in World Championships, then getting cut for the Olympics, and then making it back to the national team after the Olympics, because she still had the fire in the belly. What was it like, being in that situation where you wanted to make it and, getting centralized and not making the team for the Olympics?
Yeah, that happened to me a few times. And I think it's just my competitive spirit that kept me going, just because I'm pretty self-driven. And I think I mean, looking back, I must have just really loved hockey to go through all the ups and downs and the adversity and still love the game and still play. I think I kept a pretty good perspective. And, I just like being a part of a team and part of the people, and just, you're around people that are very like-minded, and, they're all some of the best in the world, and they're there for a reason. And I think it's just a mindset. But it definitely is tough. And I think that's why I've been able to really relate to the female players that I've coached over the years, because the Olympics is an end game, but it shouldn't be the only thing that you're trying to achieve. I think it's, it's great if you make it. It's, you're not a failure if you don't, because there's many people. I mean, I equate it kind of to the NHL. Like, look at how many guys, you ask any guy that's played at a high level. I mean, there's so many guys that were right there that could have made it instead of them, right? It might be opportunity. It might be one coach likes you, one person in the organization likes you. So you can't be super hard on yourself when you don't make those things. And I think every time I didn't make it, it kind of just put more fire in my belly to keep proving myself and, saying I can do this and I'm a good player. And but it definitely, it teaches you a lot. And there's a lot of people that I think it's ruined hockey for, unfortunately, which is super sad. And I think when we all think about the game, you want to keep the game where you want to have someone have an experience where they want to put their kid in the game. I think that should be everyone's end goal, because hockey is bigger than just a sport. I think it's a lifestyle, and I think it's important for people to have people in their life, and I think it's important for people to have exercise in their life, setting goals, following through with things, being a good teammate. I mean, there's so many aspects of hockey that is bigger than just actual, the game or making any team.
Making team, yeah. So I know you've probably been asked this question before, and probably it's a little bit of a cliche, but looking back on your time around the trying to make the Olympic team, is there anything you would have done differently now that you've had so many years to look back on it?
I don't think so. I mean, honestly, I look back and I don't know how I did it for that long, to be honest. I think any athlete that's played at a high level sometimes looks back and is like, how did I do that for like 14 years, and just keep battling away. And I think, but that's part of my drive, right? And when someone tells me I can't do something, that's what drives me, is what I found over the last 20 years of my life.
Gotcha. All right. So last question related to the national team. So honestly, did you think about playing in the upcoming Olympics, especially since the team was centralized in Blaine, Minnesota, which is, just a few minutes away from you? Come on.
No, my USA hockey days are long gone. That takes way too much dedication. And, now that I have kids, there's no possible way.
Well, you're Superwoman,
I'm running around.
All right. Okay, let's move on to your hockey family for a second. So I got two questions related to your family. So who's the best hockey player in your family? Since I know your dad played hockey, obviously your mom played hockey.
Well, I have to say my brother Vic, brother Vic, otherwise I won't live that one down. Yeah.
He played at St. Cloud, right? He played at St. Cloud?
He played at St. Cloud State. Yep, for Herb Brooks, which is pretty cool. So when I was like 10, I was, watching Herb coach, my brother.
Okay, and then who's the best coach in the family? Since I know your dad is still coaching. And I think one of your sisters also coached.
Yeah, I think my brother Vic, well, he won a state title at Roseville with Bethany and his daughter Hannah. So I'd say he's probably the best coach too, unfortunately. Yeah. So
you could vote for yourself. It's okay to vote for yourself.
Yeah, I would say my brother Vic.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now
he coached Lee Steckline, who's on her 4th Olympics, so that's pretty impressive resume. I don't know. I mean, awesome. I trained Lee and coached her, but it's yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so I know your family's been deeply involved with the Minnesota Whitecaps, and so maybe you can just explain the history of the Minnesota Whitecaps, since it started way before the NWHL and the PHF even started up. So maybe talk about the history of it.
Yep. So Jenny Schmigdal Potter, because now it's Jenny Potter, it's her married name. Her dad, Dwayne Schmigdal, her and my dad her dad and my dad, Jack, when we graduated from college, we were still part of the US program, and they both wanted us to be able to play in Minnesota, and there was enough players here to put a team together. So I think Dwayne was talking to Haley Wickenheiser because the Oval Extreme had split off from the Eastern League, and so they started the Western Women's Hockey League, which would have been like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Minnesota, and Calgary. So we kind of started our own league. So the travel, because obviously travel is one of the biggest expenses for hockey, right? So we kind of had our own league, and because I know a lot of players up until that point who are Americans would have to go up to the Canadian Women's Hockey League, and you couldn't have jobs up there. So that wasn't something I was looking at doing, because I was working at Pro Guard Sports. I was a group fitness instructor at Lifetime. I was running OS hockey. I just had too much going on here that it wouldn't be worth it to just move up there and just do hockey, So that's why my dad and Dwayne started the Minnesota Whitecaps.
Gotcha. So, they've been around since 2002, right? And have seen different leagues, and now
a lot of different leagues, probably the most. I've seen the most for sure.
And you're still playing for them. You're the captain this year. So my obvious question is how are you still able to play hockey after all these years? And I think you kind of answered this a little bit before with your mom, but did your mom and your dad ever try to influence your decision either to keep playing or to retire, over the last few years?
Not really. I mean, my parents always said, even when I got cut from Olympic teams, they said, stop playing when it's not fun. And so I've never really hit that point. And I've been fortunate enough that, like I said, I've been a group fitness instructor at Lifetime for about 16 years. So I just have been able to stay in shape. I'm on the ice a lot. I'm learning new things about hockey all the time. And so I think just advancing the game, I just think back in the day, I look back and I go, gosh, I worked way too hard when I was young because I was an offensive D. But at the same time, I'm like, being an offensive D was really fun though. Now I'm like a stay-at-home D, and I'm like, I could see when I was younger why I was an offensive D. And I think just my skating ability probably, and I was a multi-sport athlete, right? I didn't just do hockey. So I wasn't really burnt out. I think a lot of kids these days, they're done playing hockey after 20, 25 years because they've done so much of it, right? So I've never really had that. I mean, the most hockey I ever played was when we centralized. I mean, I'm looking back in all the years, and that was, in 2001. So it wasn't that long ago. And I think that's probably a reason why I can still play, because I was playing soccer all the way till I was 18. I was figure skating till I was 18. I was golfing, doing all these different things. So I think that's probably a reason why I'm still playing.
Gotcha. So how many more years you got in you? So I know in 2019, you said you got at least one more. So,
I don't know. It's getting less and less. So, and it is because my two sons, Weston is 8 and Branson's 7. So, and they're in a lot of activities and a lot of different sports. And it's just, I don't want to miss their stuff because my parents never miss my stuff.
Gotcha. So if the semifinals are in Minnesota and you win that game, but the finals are in Boston, are you just going to quit before
the game actually
before the game goes, so that you can say you won your last game in Minnesota?
In Minnesota, yeah, that actually might be a good idea. I've never thought about that. Be like, scratch me from the last game. I already played it.
All right, so I got a sensitive question to ask you. So you've seen hockey from every level: youth, college, national, professional, coaching, business. Without saying anything too controversial, what is your perspective on how a sustainable women's pro hockey league with all the best players in the world should be put together?
How it should be put together?
So how should it be run? Because right now, not everybody's all together on the same page.
Right. I think everyone just needs to be on the same page because we're all wanting the same goal, right? Everyone wants what's best for the girls that are playing right now. The, U6s, U8s, U10s, whatever it might be. I think just everyone has to kind of get together, get on the same page and work together, because that's ultimately how it will grow for everyone. And everyone needs to be, needs to be positive and helpful. And I think it's time for people to come together.
Do you have a point of view on how that might happen?
I think, you just got to get some of the most powerful people in women's hockey in the same room and just get on the same page and go with it. Because I think if you have everyone going in the same direction, I think it could be really awesome. The things from where I've seen the game come in the last 20 years is incredible. And I think that it can even be better. But I think in women's hockey, it's a pretty small niche. And I think it hurts when people are split because now you're splitting half of your support. And I think for the women's game to grow, you need all the support going in one direction.
Got it.
Whatever direction that might be. And that's for the people in charge and ultimately the people that are going to be financially backing this thing.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully they get you involved to at least understand from a grassroots level, what it really takes to build a successful, girls program and how you can apply that potentially at the professional level. Like I said, since you've seen it from every possible angle there is, right? Yeah, so let's move over to Minnesota hockey. So I read a great quote, which is, Winnie embodies what it means to leave the game better than you found it. And I know you've done some amazing things with Minnesota hockey, which is actually how, I asked you to be a guest on the podcast. You are the most recommended person for me to have as a guest based on everything that you've done for girls hockey in Minnesota. So here's my question for you. What makes Minnesota girls hockey players so good? Is it like the coaching, the ice time, the culture, the high school hockey? Like, why can't other areas of the country copy what you guys have been able to do?
I think it's pretty special in that we have a lot of rinks, and the proximity of those rinks to our communities is a huge reason why our numbers are so high. And I think the biggest thing is our numbers at the bottom of the pyramid with the little kids, the little girls playing, is so big that you're just going to ultimately have a bunch of athletes if you give them the right training, the right opportunity, and the right direction. It also ranks affordability is a big thing because if you go across the rest of the world, it's a lot more expensive than Minnesota to play this game of hockey. And
I see that every day in California. Yes, I
right, yeah, and the travel, right? Because travel is it's tiring. Like, we go on a Whitecap trip, and I'm an adult, and I'm exhausted after 3 days, and I'm some of these girls all over the country and boys, right, in certain markets, they're having to travel and grind it out every weekend, right? Where I think in Minnesota, it's pretty unique that our girls are able to play high school hockey in their communities for 4 or 5 months. It's every day. Like I said, it's affordable. It's probably $600 to play the whole season. They're going maybe 30 minutes away, and they're home that night. So they can go to the dances. They can experience all the high school stuff that they can, because the high school hockey is part of their thing. Now, for our kids in Minnesota, that's just a piece of the puzzle. So that's 3 or 4 months, which is a really short season. And then after that, our girls are able to train with the best of the best and steel sharpens steel, right? So it's one of those things that we have so many numbers, and these kids get to compete against each other day in and day out. And I think that's what's super different in our market, is that we just are lucky enough to have that many talented athletes in one metro area. And when the top kids can train with each other and push each other, you're gonna inevitably get a lot of good athletes.
Gotcha. So I'm going to get to the league that you're the director of in a moment. But before I get to that, is one thing I did notice when I was in Minnesota last year for a few different hockey events is that, Minnesota hockey is played differently than, what I see in a lot of the rest of the country. Is there a Minnesota versus USA hockey development model, which is slightly different? Are there some philosophies that are different, or are they the same, just applied maybe in a slightly different way?
I think it's ultimately the same. I just think that the repetition that our kids are able to get in their younger years, just their fundamentals of skating and stuff is pretty good, because I think a lot of Minnesotans put a lot of stakes into the skating piece of it. So I think that's the biggest difference. And then when you can skate, it's a lot easier to keep possession of the puck, right? So I think that kind of goes hand in hand as far as like I know in my programs it's puck possession and don't throw it because now you got to go get it. And it brings out creativity too. And I think a lot of our kids also still do play a lot of outdoor hockey, you know, in their backyards. And so it's like I said, in Minnesota, it's like a lifestyle. It's not just a game. It's like you're everywhere, and it's kind of hockey in Minnesota, because what else do you do in this freezing weather for, 3 months? I mean, you're pretty much outdoors playing hockey. And like I said, it's the ability to, I have a rink 5 minutes from my house. I can go be in another rink in 10 minutes. I could, probably 30 rinks in 10 minutes. So I think that's what makes us, because I'm sure like, in California, how far of a drive is it for someone to play hockey, right? That's maybe in Southern or Northern California or wherever it might be, right? And then I think our burnout is a lot less because these kids aren't having to travel all the time.
Gotcha.
Which, keeps it kind of more fresh.
And I noticed that like you don't always use all the USA hockey rules. So at the two of the tournaments that I was at, the icing on a power play rule doesn't exist.
Right. So the upper Midwest Elite League, that's where for people that don't know what it is, it's pretty much our best high school girls and boys. The boys have it on their side. It's a little bit different. But we pretty much draft our teams. So we have even teams at our 19s and 16s level. So we have really good, we have 24 games before the high school league starts. So that's from September till October. And so all the games are super competitive. Like I said, it's on the weekends. It's during, one day maybe during the week. But these kids are also able to just stay home. It's like like I said, once again, they're not traveling for 8 weekends in a row. It's like, okay, they're driving to Fogarty Ice Arena and Blaine, and then they're driving home.
Yeah.
And they're staying at, home, or if they have some other activities or family, stuff, like they can be a part of that. And then with our league, it's more prepping. It's a development league. It's not about winning, right? Because all of our kids, we've been able to get all together. So we're not fighting over kids, or certain programs aren't fighting for this kid to this kid, because we want them all together. When they're all together, they're more powerful together.
So there are certain teams that always seem to rise to the top within that league that,
the Upper Midwest Elite League.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, and if they win the league, they go to national championships for either the under 16s
so it's
or the under 19s,
between us
right?
and Shattuck. Yeah. So Shattuck and our teams playing a state game.
Yeah.
Usually, and it's a little bit different because even if our Elite League teams win it, our kids don't necessarily go to nationals, because in high school hockey, which most of the country doesn't understand, our state high school hockey tournament is what our girls, really, really have a passion about, right? Because that's what the kids they've been playing with since they've been 10, and they've played all the way up. So when we go to a national tournament, it's awesome. Our kids have a great time. They compete hard, but if they lose, they leave and they're like, okay, we're just going home, right? Where these other programs from all over, like that's their team. That's the only team that they have known, right? So it's a little bit different, where we're just pulling our kids together for a month and a half. Like they all train together in the summer and stuff, but like they're a team for 2 months and then they get back together for 3 weeks and then play. So it's not like they've, been one team of,
for a whole season
kids for their whole life, right? And this is, but their
And
high
there's a big
school
gap.
teams are like that, which is totally different.
Yeah, understood. The difference between high school hockey and then kind of league hockey prior to the start of the high school season. And there's a big gap, correct me if I'm wrong, of like almost 5 or 6 months in between when they win the championship in October, basically.
Right, yeah. Yep.
Until
So
April.
our Upper Midwest Elite League teams, our 19s and 16s, Minnesota hockey stops those before the high school season starts. And then those don't start up again until March. So,
Gotcha.
and then the national tournament's in April, right? So all of our kids haven't skated together for 4 or 5 months.
Gotcha.
And then we've been together for 3 weeks.
And you mentioned that it's a draft to pick the team. So do you try and stack one of the teams so that
No.
they
So
can do
like
it?
that,
So
yeah.
it's just random,
No.
whoever happens
Yeah.
to be the good team out of the 12 that
Yep,
each
it's
year.
whoever gels the most, right? Because sometimes people go to national camp like, oh, this team is stacked, but then they're like not the best team, right? So it's like you never know what you're gonna get. So us coaching, our coaches staff, which I'd say all of us have played Division I hockey, we draft it where, because as coaches, we don't want to get beat every game, right? We're all competitive. So
Yeah.
we try to, draft it where it's a first line, first line, second line, third line, so forth. So, and who we think our D pairs are going to play well together and stuff like that. In our league, we don't shorten the bench. We don't have power plays, penalty kills. It's just go out and play. Because my philosophy on that is all these kids are going to play Division I hockey, especially on our 19s team, right? Because we have 2. And they're all going to have to learn these things at the programs that they're going to. So you got to have experience. And I'm a firm believer is you have to put people out there because they got to learn that they can do it and they have to learn that they cannot do it. So, because players will learn and be good self-evaluators that maybe I shouldn't be out in that situation. How are you going to know that unless you've been put in that situation? So that's kind of how we're.
And so obviously a key piece of this is having good coaches, starting even at the youngest of ages. How do you develop really good coaches in Minnesota? Because one of the biggest challenges that I find, at least, in the areas that my kids have been playing hockey, is finding really good coaches, year after year after year.
Yep. No, it's super tough. And with my company with OS Hockey Training, it's been pretty consistent because I've been a coach in it, and I'm, most people probably aren't doing 6 hours a day like I am still at my age. But I just love it. And I don't see it as work. I see it more as my hobby and passion because I just really love it. And then I just have, some really strong female staff that have played Division I hockey, and they've kind of just watched me for the last probably 10 years. And, some people get it, some don't, but if they don't get it, they can still be, coaches. They're probably not just going to be lead coaches. And so it's just kind of finding people that are really good, and I've got a really good staff of people. That's
awesome. Okay, great. So I got 3 last questions for you. So first one is, as I kind of mentioned to you before we hit record, I attended with my daughter the Minnesota Elite NIT tournament in October.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing which impressed the heck out of me was that all the referees were female at the event. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of teams there and there were a lot of games. So finding that many refs must have been a lot of work. So tell me the philosophy and the strategy behind having only female refs at a major hockey tournament.
Yeah, so we are very fortunate enough that the Upper Midwest Elite League is with USA Hockey. So USA Hockey, they are in charge of all the referees for that event because it's the only 3-woman event before the national tournament in April. So all those girls are being evaluated, trained in on whether or not they're going to be selected to the national tournament in April for USA Hockey. So they fly in referees from all over the country, which is pretty cool. And they've been doing that since day one with us, with our NIT. So it's great that USA Hockey is a big piece of that because, like you said, it's a huge tournament, a lot of teams, and it's good practice for the female refs too to get experience. We've had a lot of refs come out of our league. And so forth that have gone on to, be professional referees and also Olympic referees and mine. So
well, you could see all of them skate like the wind. So it was pretty impressive to watch them get around the ice. All right. So second to last question is, given that you're, deeply involved with the Upper Midwest High School Elite League, how involved are you with helping some of these players get recruited? Do you help with college recruiting? Do you get on the phone with some of the D1 or D3 coaches and kind of give scouting reports?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been doing that from day one, and that's kind of what I love to do because I think college hockey, D1, D3 is the best opportunity for females playing the game of hockey. And that's why I tell every kid, I go, if you can play college hockey, that's just huge. And I go, that's what's satisfying for me and why I put so many hours into it, because if I can help a girl continue to play the game for as long as they can at the college level, I think it's fantastic. And, you know, that's probably my driving force to continue what I do all these years, all the hours at the rink and, you know, the feet and the skates all the time. But when I see those kids continue on, especially the kids that maybe wouldn't go to college if they didn't have hockey, that even makes it more rewarding when you see that.
Nice. Okay, good to know that you know, you're always scouting too. So
Yeah,
giving you recommendations. All right, so a lot of parents are stressed out these days, and players are stressed out if they're graduating in 2023. And even some 2024s are starting to get nervous, especially if they're goalie parents. What advice do you have for some of these players and parents as they're going through the college recruiting process, both from D1 and a D3 perspective? Because given what's been going on with COVID, a lot less kind of openings and announcements being made these days.
Yep. I would just say the biggest thing is they gotta keep patience, and they gotta, you know, continue to keep their child positive, and don't stress out too much, because your kids can feel that stress, and then it just makes them more stressful. And let the kids talk about it versus always asking them or talking about it, and just believe in the process, because things happen for reasons. And I mean, one of my biggest things is I tell my girl hockey players, I go, guess what? The last time I got cut from the Olympics, it was December, and I met my husband about 3 weeks later. You know, and I wouldn't trade him for anything. So it's just, it's unfortunate times for these student athletes, and I mean, even the kids in college, but you just got to trust and, you know, make the best decision for yourself, and just be patient with it, because it's constantly changing. And I know when some programs say, hey, we're, you know, full, or we don't have room, and you really are passionate about that program, you know, just check in, just send them an email. It doesn't have to be from anyone else. It's just from yourself saying, you know, how much you want to go to that school and why. And because things could change, and, you know, someone could be leaving, someone could get sick, someone could get hurt. There's so many factors that can happen. So it's just staying positive, and just as a parent, just, you know, enjoy the process, right? I go, the fact that your kid is even talking to college coaches is a huge accomplishment, and just remind your kids of that, you know.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Winnie, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I mean, it was great
Oh, yeah,
learning.
no, thank you for having me. I'm very honored. So.
This was great learning about your entire hockey career. I mean, it's pretty impressive. And the fact that you're still playing, I mean, I know you know this, but like the fact that you're still playing, you got, you know, games coming up probably in Buffalo or something like that pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to wish you best of luck with the rest of the season, and congrats on all your success. And definitely we'll be continue to watching what you're doing in Minnesota to see what's going on with the girls hockey over there.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
I really want to thank Winnie for coming on the podcast. It was great to learn so much about hockey development in the state of hockey, how Winnie was able to have such a long and incredible hockey career, and her advice on how to be the best hockey player you can be. And remember, if you got something out of today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, follow, subscribe, and even better if you could leave us a review, so we can keep sharing this important hockey information with folks just like you.